Hello and welcome to Trojan Talk. I'm your host, Aaron Taylor. Today we'll be talking about the upcoming performance from the Theater and Dance Department here at Troy University. And my guest today, Director of Violet, Tori Averett. Tori, thanks for joining me here today.
Thank you, Aaron. It's good to be here.
And when you're here, we're usually talking about something going on with theater, and
Yes.
this is a production put on by the Troy University students. Violet, tell us a little bit about Violet. What is Violet all about?
Violet is a musical, and it's kind of an atypical musical, so no jazz hands and swirly skirts and things like that. This is a story of a 25-year-old woman who takes a bus ride from her home in the Appalachian Mountains across the country to Tulsa, Oklahoma, and she's going to seek out the help of a TV preacher who she's seen on television, and she believes that he will heal her of her physical imperfections and make her beautiful like the women she sees in the movies and in the magazines. And along the way, she meets some new friends and learns a little bit about herself and about what makes a person really beautiful. And it's really interesting. It's sort of a Wizard of Oz thing,
Okay.
a different kind of Dorothy. It's really entertaining and challenging and heartwarming all at the same time.
And now, and part of this plot deals with, I guess, the time period, some issues that are relative to the time period, 50s, 60s era,
Right.
and some of the issues that are touched on. Talk about some of the things that they may see and some of the issues discussed that are thematic in this production. So.
Well, it's really subtle. The play itself is set in 1964, and it's a bus trip in 1964. So all of the wonderful and terrible progress that the country was going through with the civil rights movement. You've got the obvious tension of racial things in the southeastern United States. And one of the people who she meets along the way, Violet, on her journey, she meets two soldiers, a white soldier and a black soldier. And it's really interesting to see how they interact and the things that they learn about how we look at people and what we see on the outside of one another versus what is inside. So that's hinted at, but it's not really a primary theme of the play, which I think is kind of what's attractive about the story.
And it pulls people into it there.
Yeah.
And now, a lot of the shows that we see put on by the department are got some pretty big names and familiarity to some of the people out there. This is something that I'm not familiar with, and maybe a lot of other people may not be as familiar with.
Right.
How did this end up being put on at Troy University?
Well, we're always looking for a good story. We're always looking for things that have meaning, and we're certainly looking for things that would be good vehicles for our incredibly talented students. So this show is something that was revived in New York a couple of years ago, starring Sutton Foster, which is a name that Broadway enthusiasts would know. But it is something that seemed to fit the flavor of this university and of our students. It's an ensemble cast, so we have a nice mid-sized cast of 16 to 18, and so it gives a lot of students opportunity, and those are all nice things, but really it's a good story with great music, and we think that it would speak to the community here, the university itself, and it's attractive to many different ages. Those are all things that we're constantly looking for. So I think, yeah.
You mentioned there that it's set in a southern setting, and so I guess that makes it a little bit easy to transition, at least for the viewing audience and maybe some of your students, to be able to kind of get in that mindset of something that could be taking place in their backyard.
Right, and it's really interesting that you say that, because we have the climate obviously is different. The country is different than it was in 1964, and it's kind of wonderful to see our students who come from all different backgrounds and origins having trouble communicating some of the division that was present, because they haven't experienced that the way that someone in 1964 would have. The other thing that's really funny and interesting is so many of our students, as our program has grown and as Troy University itself has grown, we don't just get students from Alabama anymore. So most of our principal characters are not really Southern flavored. We've had to train them into the Southern accent, which I have no problem with, but we've had to remind them to stay Southern, which has been an interesting challenge.
And now you mentioned earlier that this is a musical, but it's not your typical musical.
Right.
I guess explain a little bit what you mean by not typical musical. You talked about the jazz hands and all that,
Right.
but a little bit more subtle, I guess, in it being a musical. Explain the difference there. So.
Well, in theater you have plays, and you have plays with music, and then you have musicals. And typically you think of a musical as from time to time people burst into song, or they all happen to know the dance steps and
Yes.
move in unison at the exact same time. So there is some of that. There are people When words aren't enough, they have to sing. When moving is not enough, they have to dance. So there's that element in it. But there aren't those kinds of numbers that there's a big boom at the end and the audience claps. And the characters are incredibly complex and they're real people. This isn't a cartoonish kind of thing. Not saying that all musical theater is, but another thing is that it really moves, which is a new trend in musical theater, that it's not episodic, with blackouts in between scenes. It moves really quickly, and it's kind of cinematic, which makes it difficult to direct for the stage. You guys could probably do a great job of filming it here. Some new flavors in musical theater there.
Well, if anyone's interested in seeing this, we're running out of time, but if they want tickets, how can they get hold of tickets, and when is it going to air? Ryan.
So 2 ways to get tickets. The Trojan Center box office next to Barnes & Noble. Student ID will get you a ticket for $5. General admission is $10.
Right.
The show is April 6th through 10th. And it's 7:00 p.m. every day, but the Sunday matinee is at 2:30.
All right.
You can go online to find all of this information at troytheater.org.
Okay.
And there's also an online ticket agent there, so you can purchase your tickets through the web if you'd like.
All right. Well, sounds like it's going to be a fun show, and not good luck. Break a leg.
Thank you very much.
Break a leg. Thanks for joining us today.
Thank you, Aaron.
And thank you for joining us on today's edition of Trojan Talk.